Another beautiful winter day in Southern California, getting towards the end of February 2014. But look at this, about 75 degrees. Yeah, it's nice weather, dry, but very, very pleasant. I'm Bob Barron. I've been putting videos on my YouTube channel, the one you're looking at right now, and some of it is just stuff I've been doing lately, but also some's about this particular book that I wrote and I've been I guess kind of publicizing for the last some months, called Life Parts by Robert Barron. That's who I am. But today I'd like to just share a few things to maybe make clear how it all comes about. I mean, how do you get to write a book anyhow? I mean, I think anybody could write a book, but one reason why I wanted to write one is because I'm 77 years old, and those who watch this channel know that I've told that before. Not a kid, and I want to share some things while I can still do that. I've been a teacher most of my life, and of course, just doing that, I had a chance to do a lot of stuff, I guess. You know, you teach, you have to convey ideas to other people. But I never really been considered myself a writer, I'll put it that way. Grew up in Chicago, and I remember so well the first day of high school. I went to Schurz High School in Chicago, and for that first day so well. And I put a little story about that in here, which I call Schurz High School. You might want to read that. But one course I took that first semester, it was 1954, February, I hadn't quite turned 14 years old yet. Well, I took typing because I thought that would be a pretty good thing to take. I think my family did, and also the teachers, so I took typing. But once my dad learned that I was learning to type, he made me his secretary. Frankly, I didn't like that too much, didn't enjoy it, because we're talking about a long time ago. We had typewriters. And what they really meant, if you wanted to write a letter, which is what Dad was doing, he would dictate a letter and I would write it for him, type him, if you will. But in order to make a copy, you had a piece of carbon paper in the middle. I don't even know if some of you have even heard of what carbon paper is, but that's how we made a copy. There were no copy machines, there were no computers. That's how we did it. So what it really meant was, for myself, just learning to type. If I made mistakes, I had to erase them or do the whole page over. I mean, my dad was a stickler, and that's what made it so hard for me. I really wanted to do the best I could, but sometimes I got so mad I wanted to throw the typewriter out the window. Well, I didn't, of course, and all these years later I can tell you I've used that skill a lot, of course. When I went to college, and gosh, you know, the writing I've done myself, that is even letters, when we used to write letters a lot. I'm glad I learned to type. My senior year of high school, after 4 years of English, what we had, and I'm glad for all that, because all of that English stuff is learning something about writing, whether you're writing stories or paragraphs, whatever the teacher wants you to do. But that last semester as a senior, there was a contest to write a speech, and the subject was supposed to be about patriotism in some way. Now, this is a long time ago, probably when patriotism was a word that had more meaning. It's still important, but I think back then, because of such things as wars, Korean War and Cold War, whatever else we might have been going through, it was more in people's minds. So I wrote my little speech. I think the limit was probably 2 minutes, and then we had to present that in the auditorium in front of a crowd of students and teachers and parents. And our auditorium was big, probably a couple thousand people in that place. But I remember the thrill of it, being on stage with that mic, and then hearing my own voice go out through those speakers and reverberate throughout that big hall. It was a thrill. I might have had some stage fright or whatever, but I think that just being able to do that, it was really a transforming moment for myself. I would say that I hope everybody could get a chance to feel confident about being in front of a group and saying them something, sharing ideas. I think it's really important to be able to do that. It lets you know kind of who you are and other people get a chance to know who you are also. That's important stuff. But I guess the point is learning to type Dad's letters. I was learning to write because he was a good writer of sentences and paragraphs. And, all that stuff in high school, I learned to be a better writer and went to college. But then all these years later, how did I actually get to write a book? Well, it happens I was in a bookstore a few years ago, and at that time somebody had some students who were reading poetry or sharing it in some way. Now, I'd never really written poetry. I certainly had told my students about what I thought a poem was, just to take the best words in the best order, try to express yourself with as few words as possible. That was my idea, and it doesn't have to rhyme. But then when I saw these people reciting their own poetry, the professor there invited all of us in the audience, come on to college and take a class, you might enjoy it. So I did that, I took them up on that. I'd never had a poetry class in my life until then. I really don't remember ever writing poetry in high school or college, but at that time I got a chance to meet some people who wrote poetry, professionals actually, and I kind of got the hang of it. I got to enjoy it. I don't consider myself a poet, really, but I've written some stuff I really like, so I'd like to share a couple of those, because what this book says is called Life Parts, but the subtitle says Memories, Fictions, Poems are all life parts. Now, what do I mean? I mean everything we go through in life becomes kind of what you write about, whether you write stories or memories of your family or what you've been through, as I have done, or you write poems. All of it is part of our life, and I think all of it becomes part of us. Some of it may not be pleasant, some of it is kind of painful. I had some painful memories, both when I was a kid and in the service, and I've written about that stuff and put it in here also. But I have a sister who's told me from time to time, just forget all that stuff, Bob, like you can just forget it. I don't think you can ever forget anything you've gone through. I don't think so, because you've been there, you've seen it, you've heard it, maybe people even hurt you, and that stuff gets embedded right here. 100 billion cells in your brain. I think it's there forever. I really do. You may not think about it, but I think it's always there, and actually that's what makes us who we are. All those experiences kind of mold us, even the bad ones, right? I think so. They say if something doesn't really hurt you, then you go through it and you become a better person. You learn something, and you learn how to survive and how to stand up for yourself and all that. Anyhow, so I have all these memories, but I wrote a couple of poems I'd like to share. One is kind of a happy little thing, one of the kids in the neighborhood came up one day, and I didn't know him at all, but he said, "Hey, mister, you need some help." And I looked at him, and I said, "How old are you?" He said, 7 years old, going on 8. So that's the title of the poem, 7 years old, going on 8. And here's what happened. Now, this poem I wrote right after we did that, just to let you know that some poems people just write, I guess, like making a painting from their memory. But this one was done right at that time. 7 years old, almost 8. The little boy asks, "Can I help you?" I think hard and look at him. "You're kind of dinky," I'm thinking, but I say, "Sure, I can use some help." It's yard work, chainsawing limbs off of trees, cutting vines, trimming bushes, making everything pretty for those who come home for the holidays. So I give the kid the loppers, 3-foot handles, he's 3.5 feet tall, and show him how to lop branches off of limbs. If they're an inch thick, I tell him, we'll cut them another way. He goes to work and I do too. He lops, I saw. Getting tired, I ask him, after 30 minutes. Not yet, he says. At 1 hour, I say, I'm tired. How much should I pay you? He says, what do you think? I tell him, I was thinking maybe $2 or $3. An illumination lights up his face. How about 10? He asks with a smile. 10? I've paid high school kids $10 an hour to help, I reply, but they're hard workers. I worked hard, is his immediate, knowing, smiling response. I look at him and think, I've been out and negotiated by a 7-year-old, but I say, yeah, but they're twice as big as you. I take out my wallet and pull out 5 ones. I think 5 is fair, I tell him, but see what your mother says. I want to work longer, he says, and grabs the loppers again. That's a true story, and I kind of like it. I mean, I do like it. and I hope you like it too. But is it a poem? You can decide. It doesn't rhyme, but it tells a story in very few words, and I think it does it quite kind of neatly, I'd say. Let me read one more thing I wrote here. I hope you can see this. The sun is kind of trying to hide behind those trees a bit. Now this story, this poem, well, poems are stories actually, very succinct, short little tidbits of life. But this one, of course, is from memory, and I call it My Family. We discover one day that we are a part of a family. First it's just Mom, then Dad comes into view. Later a big brother and a big sister and an almost twin sister. A bunch of people, loving, helping, sometimes yelling and hitting. We cry. Grow up, we're told, and we do. But we still remember all those first family members. Somewhere in the middle time we find other family, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandpa. How we're all related is a mystery. I mean, knowing that Aunt is Mom's sister does not tell why she loves me so much. You should be my son, she says. And Grandpa, I learned later, is not really Grandpa, but step-grandpa. The real one, long dead, I can visit only in pictures. Other pictures show other real family, great-grandpa fighting a civil war, cousin Elizabeth, Mom's cousin, looking so much like Mom, born the same year. How did all these people end up a part of me? I asked Dad. That's a good question, he says. Probably just an accident. That's it. My family. It's true, of course. I mean, we have a picture of great-grandpa in a picture like he probably was, gosh, he must have been 80-some-odd years old in that picture, with great-grandpa and grandpa and Dad and Mom and the earlier kids, because I'm the fourth one born to this family. But you might even see my great-grandpa on TV sometimes, because he was kind of, I guess he was an agile guy even later in life, and they showed him, I've seen it on some historical movies, this old guy is doing somersaults. No, cartwheels I think it was. So they've seen him, but that's my great-grandpa. Yep, great-grandpa. So I learned to write and to think about what poems are, and I wrote some. There's more in the book, of course, but I just want to give you a little flavor in case you never even looked at this. I figure, well, I mean, I wrote this stuff, right, and I like it, so I wanted to share it. That's the whole idea, why you share it, because you think maybe something worth sharing. Maybe you're a poet yourself, and you might like to read some of this stuff, or other things that maybe I'll read some more of this to you tomorrow, some of the stories. And the idea of some of that stuff is because some of it's painful. Well, there are lessons in here, Maybe someone can look at this and think, gee, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or maybe I should tell someone to stop hurting me like that, because some of the stuff did hurt me. Well, I think that's about enough for today. I can hear some bells out there. It says it's 4 p.m. right now. Thanks for looking. I'll put some more of this stuff. Well, I'll put this on my YouTube today if I can, if it's good enough. And then maybe I'll make another one for you tomorrow about stories. Thanks for looking. Take care. Bye-bye.